don't know that you're an Amma. You don't know you're a God in expression. You don't know that you're a king or queen. You call yourself that, but you really don't know that that's a science. That's an actual thing. And you don't know you have the power to change it. So now you take on a false identity. You either become a good Negro, third frequency, you go to church, you get a job, you go to get your education, you get your Lexus, you get your house and your red bottom, and you go along to get along and you don't rock the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a group of us, I'm putting myself in this category, that says, all hell to the no. I'm not cooning out. I'm not selling out. Fuck you, Whitey. I'm a real nigga out here in these streets. But you can't solve, and that's fourth frequency. But guess what, brother? I could not solve any of my problems in fourth or third frequency. Even when I tried to become third frequency, I still was being called a nigga, because even in Christianity, Christianity made me a nigger. Look at your ancient words in etymology. Where did the word nigger come from? Where did the word bitch hoe come from? Who invented those words? It wasn't African people. It was second frequency. But what happens, honey, when you get capture bonded, when you get captured, when you're a prisoner of war, in order to eat and have some semblance of non-trauma being presented to you on a daily basis, you know what you do? You conform. You comply. And many times you do it without even thinking about it, particularly if you're birthed into it.
Talk to me about that real quick, Rev Shock. You just said something important to me. You said a fourth frequency, brother, can't necessarily help us. Well, explain that to me, because fourth frequency, he's rebellious.
Right.
About life. He want to help out. Right. He'll fuck something up for us. So how is he not beneficial?
Right. Because when you are labeled and start to label yourself a nigga, you have to understand what that means. There's a quote that says you can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created the problem.
Correct.
If you were socially engineered, no matter what you do as a third frequency or fourth frequency, you're not getting out. Because you're still within the system that created you. You're still using the label and the identity of the system that created you. So how can a nigga ever get out?
Got it.
So if I know that now I'm first frequency, if I know that I've always been a god, and this has been a huge social engineering campaign and structure to keep whites on top, to keep whiteness on top, to keep white supremacy on top, because that's the only way they can survive, because they can't be equal to us, because every time they allow us in, we run them over. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a sport. It could be a technology. It could be anything. When black hands and a black mind and a black God get on it, it's us. We own it. They know they can't compete. So they have to continue to have these laws in place. And I have done so much research on this. I was just reading a piece recently on how they used rape as a form of war. They use rape as an act of war. It's not a crime in war to rape. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Right? So when you look at what happened to us, so anti-miscegenation. Let's have a little history. Let's go through a little short, but let's go through it so the family can understand. Ain't nothing wrong with the family. Something happened to the family. So after these people landed here on this rock, as Malcolm would say, Plymouth Rock landed on us. They now in our framework, we call this the fourth history. There's four histories. This is the fourth history, the history of anti-miscegenation. In other words, this is when white people were invented as a matter of law. In all of the books of history, no European and no scholar ever referred to themselves as white. White is American made. It's a concept and a construct that was created between 1664 and instituted in 1681. This is the work of Dr. Jacqueline Badalora. White people in anti-miscegenation. Anti-miscegenation, most people think of it's the mixing law. It's the laws of sexual mixing and interracial dating and whatever. It's illegal to marry a black person or a white person. If you are white, it's illegal for a black man to marry a white woman. That's what most people think if they've heard of the term anti-miscegenation. But what it really was it was the moment in history that changed this continent and the world forever. And that was the invention of white people. And there were 3 laws that came out of anti-miscegenation that got you and I in this conversation today. First law, person of African descent could not vote or run for office. Now, oh, and mind you, let me paint the picture. So prior to anti-miscegenation, blacks or Africans, Europeans, and all or whatever other races were there, worked together, dated, married. Black people, Africans owned slaves and indentured servants. Whites owned slaves and indentured servants. Everybody was equal. But the problem was, again, if it's African, we are going to be the best of the best. So guess what happened? When the planters, the masters, the tobacco plantation owners started making all of this money off of free labor or indentured labor, which means that there's a certain time frame that you're indentured and then you're free. And again, this was black and white. This is prior to anti-miscegenation. But what happened is that many of the European women got that jungle fever. Mm-hmm. They saw these big ass, they never saw nothing. You know, family show, I know some church people are watching, so I got to be careful, but they never saw nothing like that in their life. You know what I'm talking about, goddammit. You know what I'm saying? You know, like Bernie Mac said, I'll pull my stuff out, this room goes dark. You understand what I'm talking about? They never saw nothing like that. And so these white men who had money and power were like, why are you, white woman, marry a European white woman? Why do you want them, a slave, an indentured service? Well, because Seymour be putting it down. That's what it is, So this created just huge layers and levels of hostility toward the African man. And white men, now called white men, wanted access